be almost $1 cost. Yes, we are in the dollar. Wakana, I had this. Missy, Mamma, me, Unu, Namuna, Mukacha, me 30 years in me. After wake when I'm to Abaman, me person black into your pamucho.
In Ghana, our prices are not stable because of the dollar. It's never to me stable. Every month, yes, we have price now. The local markets and the consumers in Switzerland, they have
problems in their face.
Yeah, my first problem this year means me brand tank. I made one out this year.
What is the problem?
The problem was the price has increased. It was 1,350, but now it is 1,750. Just 3 weeks.
Just 3 weeks?
Yes.
From 1,350?
Yes, 2,750.
2,750.
So I was returning back. Because
wow.
The way now the price I gave it to them over there, and now that it has increased about double, I can't afford it.
President Mahama has formed arguably one of the biggest or largest governments in the history of our country as it relates to the cost on the national exchequer. Mr. Speaker, why do I say this? Take, for example, the President has appointed Dr. Valerie Sawyer as Senior Presidential Advisor in charge of government affairs. Her rank is a cabinet minister who doubles as a member of parliament. So her salary, her emolument, conditions of service, everything to do with her office is at the same rank as a cabinet minister who doubles as a member of parliament. The Speaker, he's appointed a presidential advisor on economy, appointed presidential advisor for 24-hour economy, presidential advisor in special aid to the president, presidential advisor on national anti-corruption program, presidential advisor on diaspora affairs. Mr. Speaker, he goes on to appoint presidential advisor, presidential staffer, and special aid to the vice president, presidential staffer for Black Star Experience, and then presidential staffer for diaspora affairs. Mr. Speaker, then he goes ahead to appoint 5 policy advisors to the vice president. Mr. Speaker, he tells the country that he's appointed a minister in charge of agribusiness, and yet he's appointed director at the presidency in charge of agriculture and agribusiness. My good friend Peter Buama Otukono. Mr. Speaker, he says he will not appoint deputy regional ministers, and he appoints 16 presidential staffers in charge of the 16 regions of our country. Mr. Speaker, I want to submit that these presidential staffers in charge of the 16 regions of our country, in essence, as it relates to the cost on the national exchequer, are in fact, indeed, and in substance, deputy ministers of state. Mr. Speaker, he then appoints, Mr. Speaker, listen carefully, please. Mr. Speaker, he then appoints 1 presidential advisor on media, 4 directors of communication at the office of the president, 5 deputy directors of communication, 2 communication specialists, 5 technical communication assistants, 1 media aide, 1 assistant media liaison officer, 1 communications consultant. That's because I've done the mathematics, and I want to submit. That's because I've done the mathematics that I want to submit, and I do this not from a partisan lens, but I do this as somebody who had the privilege and honor to serve as Deputy Chief of Staff. I know how it works. In terms of the cost on the national exchequer, the President has appointed 100 ministers and deputy ministers. That's because the President has established a Ministry of Youth Development. Mr. Speaker, I want to refer the House.
Mr. Speaker, Article 67 of the Constitution is quite clear that the President is to deliver a message on the state of the nation.
Came to this House of presidential staffers. In 2021, the presidential staffers were 934. The report came to this House. 934. So far, President John Dramani Mahama has appointed only 30 presidential staffers and advisors. 30 presidential staffers and advisors. Mr. Speaker, let's just go down memory lane and recall the budget allocations to Office of Government Machinery. In 2017, Office of Government Machinery took 1.5 billion Ghana cedis. In 2018, 1.4 billion Ghana.
Mr. Speaker, Article 67.
We will take item 9. Speaker, that is your report, the Speaker's report. And Speaker, let me say for the record, and I see my good friend, the minority leader, eager to speak. But we met a conclave, and we considered, Speaker, we considered a number of business to be considered. And I'm happy that my good friend, the Chief Whip, is here. And we agree.
What we agreed on conclave is known to us. Let's proceed.
Yeah, so we will take item 9. Yes.
Yes.
And I will seek your leave for it to be taken by the deputy leader.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity to contribute to the statements on the floor, and then ask our visitors up here to be wary of the things our previous speaker said. Truth is sacred. Truth is sacred. We cannot pick a financial statement and misinterpret the financial statement. We cannot pick a financial statement of a bank and misinterpret the financial statement. Data and truth, sacred. Our colleague on the other side just mentioned that they paid BOG supported government with a stock of 80 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, when you look at that report, the 80 billion stock dates way back 2 decades ago, and not now. 2 decades ago. Mr. Speaker, let me tell you that in 2017 to 2019, there was zero financing from the Bank of Ghana to the government of Ghana. It was only in 2020, because of the COVID, we had to go for a 10 billion loan. Yes, Mr. Speaker, beyond 2020, in 2021, there was zero financing. This is data, this is the truth. So I beg you up there to listen to the truth and don't consider what my colleague on the other side said. Mr. Speaker, in 2021, I must say and repeat, there was zero financing. You will all agree with me that in 2022, things were really bad. There were a lot of challenges, not just in Ghana, Mr. Speaker. So for my colleagues to sit here and pretend as if it was only in Ghana that things changed, that is not true. Clearly across the globe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to make comments on the media review presented yesterday. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to register my displeasure and disappointment at the majority. The empty seats are just too many.
Yes.
And this is their media budget.
Yes.
I hope the President is watching you and the Finance Minister is watching your response to this debate. Nobody is here. But, Mr. Speaker, I am also very happy that today, are you very happy? What I remember. Mr. Speaker, I am happy that today the chairman of the Finance Committee has spoken the truth to government. Has spoken the truth to government. And I'll be very happy that the video of the presentation has just made be played in the cabinet of Ghana.
However, hold on. I was saying your time was running. How you use it is yours. But now that he has intervened, I have to stop it for yes.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, in an earlier discussion, we had indicated that some regional focuses are meeting and that is the reason why the chief whip, Mr. Speaker, and the chief whip left the chamber to follow up on some matters that are very important to the minority.
To go around and do the work. I will do the work and the report. I have to be begging before we take the report. Why?
Honorable Reggie, I haven't said I wouldn't give you time. I said we are in private business time. So,
Finance Minister.
Thank you very much. I think if you were in the chamber, you saw what happened today. You realize that the expectations of Ghanaians are being met. I'm not saying are met, because it's a process. All recovery processes in the world takes time. It's like development. It's not an event. You realize that the focus basically was on stability and growth within, the framework of deepening the post-COVID recovery. And one good thing is that we're able to even save money. About 20 billion was cut from our discretionary budget, if you realize, and that is almost 9%, which is huge for mid-year budget. Apart from that, you realize that we did not even ask for supplementary budget. And you also realize that the primary macro indicators are now picking up. Global projections in terms of growth for 2023 is 3%. But our first quarter, we grew 4.2. In fact, global economy grew about 2% first quarter. All the reserves and the interest rates and exchange rates are not really there yet. However, you realize that things are really working, have started working. So I think it's all right. We'll really do deeper analysis of it, get into it, in terms of the detailed information, and let Ghanaians know. But
government is broke, but people are spending billions to go inside the government that is broke. Have you ever seen a minister who resigned because government is broke before? Government has no money. Have you ever seen a governor who said, ladies and gentlemen, when I was elected, I thought the government had money. Now I discover government has no money, I resign. Have you ever seen it? Government has no money, but they are bringing money out at election time. Where is that money coming from? So they are lying. What is happening is that there are two types of wicked people in government. Type 1, they eat current money. Any money they find in government, they will eat it. They are wicked about that one. There is type 2. Type 2, they eat current money and future money. They will say, my term will end next year. When I leave, how will I eat money? Let me borrow money now and borrow money of the future and eat it now.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the show. This is Good Morning Ghana on the Metro Television. Today is the 11th of March 2025. Thank God for being alive and giving us the rare privilege of coming back here to participate in the conversation about the big stories that are making the rounds in our dear country, Ghana. My name once again is Aldo Moro, and let me say that this show, which is Good Morning Ghana, is also live on 94.1 FM. So as usual, we'll go straight ahead and look at the front page stories, on the front page of the newspapers. I'll start with, as usual, the Daily Graphic. The Daily Graphic this morning is reporting, it says, food alert, most processed tomato impure, nutritionist reveals. Professor Bokwing IEA support abolition of taxes, but argue betting tax be maintained. English Alata, paramount chief inducted into House of Chiefs. 10-acre site retrieved from Galamseyers in Ashanti region. The Ghanaian Times. Public expectations from 2025 budget. Reduce taxes, cost of living, create employment. Public urges government. Government operation cracks down on illegal miners. Confiscates 9 excavators, bulldozer, arrest 4 persons. Let's uphold principles of Dr. J.B. Dankwa, minority leader. Oblempong, Dr. Weche Kojo II is paramount chief of English in Alata, president of the Traditional Council. Economy grows 5.7% in 2024, Professor Enim. Daily Graphic. NIB releases Gifty Owari, Mensa. China Fujian fishing calls for enhanced security. JB Dankwakela bail hearing moved to March 25. 2025 budget. E-levy COVID tax to go. 4 killed in Gori crash. The New Crusading Guide. Equiapim Education Trust graduates 14 scholars from 8 universities. Commodity smuggling threatens national security, ACCP. Finance Minister to scrap e-levy, COVID tax in 2025 budget. Bankerman rejects Ochehene's audits, sets record straight on a banker chieftaincy impasse. Commodity smuggling threatens national security, ACCP. Sunyani included in revised CRC zonal engagement. Minerals Commission hands over 175 acres reclaimed lands to Bibiani, Amiaso, Bekwai communities. Ken Oferata's contribution to Ghana's economic development. The Insight. Nkrumah's overthrow. Top security document exposes UK role in first Ghana coup. Ghana is open for business, a new dawn for investment and economic prosperity. Late Gamanya family exposes fake funeral ceremony under Akufo-Addo government. Vice President Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman calls for year-round dialogue on a women's development. Economy, worse than Mahama presented in SONA. Details will be revealed in the budget today. Deputy Finance Minister. The New Republic. All set. Castle's budget showdown. Betting e-levy, COVID taxes, young for Mahama reforms. Maslock launches groundbreaking support scheme for female farmers. 2025 budget boldly embraces revenue growth and fiscal prudence. Ghana must build economic shock absorbers, says Professor Gachi. Economic Times. Bank of Ghana starts sweeping policy reforms. 2025 budget, tax policies dominate discussions. Economy says T-bill rates decline could disincentivize commercial banks. Metro Lens. Stop Galamsey in the name of Ghana and God. Omane Buama warns. Achim Adadientem chief pays tribute to Dr. J.B. Dankwa's vision for Ghana. 2024 budget drops to 61.8% of GDP. Gideon Boako. NPP loyal ladies get new president. The New Crusading Guide. Equiapim Education Trust graduates 14 scholars from 4 universities. Finance Minister to scrap e-levy COVID tax in 2025 budget. Bankerman rejects Ochehene's orders. The Daily Searchlight. President Mahama chases out Registrar General, blocks her from office with personnel from National Security. All are corrupt. Don't tag politicians alone. Afenyo Markin. Curfew on Wale Wale and its environs reviewed. Odasco appeals for infrastructure support as new headmaster takes helm. Minerals Commission hands over 175 acres of reclaimed Galamsey land to 3 communities in Bibiani, Amiaso, Bekwai municipality. And the Business and Financial Times. Commonwealth affirms support for Mahama's 24-hour economy. Fiscal discipline, revenue, and debt control top IEA's 2025 budget expectations. Businesses confident ahead of 2025 budget, KPMG. And Kwauman Adors Dasibre Ekwama Boateng, the third in nobility. That's it for the front pages of our newspapers for today. Please stay with us. This is Good Morning Ghana.
Anti-cavity, gum protection, brighter teeth, and fresh bread.
I'm a fat missy way.
The patch of bantama.
My chest.
That's so psycho.
Smile, the fresh breath.
Me Gidi say we use Cal 360 toothpaste. Send me Cal 360 toothpaste.
Yes, Kia. Cal 360 toothpaste. It's a gum protector. Onim jom kasa. Cal 360 did the way. It's cool mint, gives me fresh breath, and your confidence booster.
You will so feeling to Cal 360 toothpaste.
Happy smile.
Cal 360 toothpaste, anti-cavity, gum protection, brighter teeth, and fresh breath. Cal, happy smile. This advert is FDA approved.
Sometimes the unexpected happens and the hero falls down in his own story. But he needs not stay down for long. Cosmopolitan Health Insurance is your trusted health partner. Whether an individual building a business, with Cosmopolitan Health Insurance, your medical care is our concern. For the best health insurance solutions for corporate institutions, groups and associations, families and individuals, choose Cosmopolitan Health Insurance from our over 700 accredited health service providers nationwide. Call us on 0302 540 668 or 0501 678 547 for all your health insurance solutions. Cosmopolitan Health Insurance, your medical care is our concern.
You're the answer to my prayers. You're with me everywhere. You're my angel, miracle. You're all I need tonight. Give me shelter from the rain. You breathe life in me again. You're my angel, miracle. You're all I need to know tonight.
In an era where fire safety is paramount, Kabori Film Compound Technologies Limited stands out as a leader in the development of innovative fire dousing solutions. With a focus on aqueous film forming foam, the company provides a cutting-edge product that significantly enhances fire suppression capabilities across various sectors, including maritime, industrial and emergency response.
The oil and gas sector, along with chemical manufacturing facilities and fire services.
Kabori's advanced film technology offers a more efficient and environmentally responsible alternative.
Kabori is recognized for its superior extinguishing capabilities and prolonged resistance to reignition. Kabori's product is certified by the Ghana National Fire Service, the Ghana Standards Authority, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Nigerian Standards Organization.
Kabori Film Compound Limited is situated in Nsawam within the eastern region of Ghana. For inquiries, reach out to them on 0245 885 288 or 0244 514 048. You may also contact them via email at info@kaborifilm.com. Kabori Film Compound Technologies Limited, providing film compound solutions to health institutions.
Ama, nansi mi general well-being enkoye kwao. Ama ma ye bohu se kontomra akija.
Nansi me hu se me nyo wasima kura. Ama me kunu ni me into kwankwa. Oyiwa. Enye mo go. Give us GC mixture and any capsules. Aye numbum. En ho asem na mo kana. E bua emma ene meme nyina. Na ma wo ba ye obesima. Na be ma so aye be masima. Ya, we be bua wuku. Ama ne giant sa wo de hye ne botum. Na wanyinya ne nti sese ne wo yi chokwa.
Give us heba. Give us heba. Give us heba.
Give us GC mixture and then a capsule. Achesa.
A pin for a batter, one more menu for one and Kwada if you do me.
Look around.
home also need a makeover. Oh, mine clearly does. So we went to Ashroom and found the Como collection. It had everything we're looking for and more. Merchant furniture for the entire home, designed with you in mind.
Where's Como collection? Dressing up is just a breeze. Always ready with a perfect accessory.
A magic dressing mirror. One look and you're ready to face the world. Or at least the kids.
A bed perfect for young men who want
a table that turns into a treasure chest.
And finally, a sofa with this grand TV unit for family time at home.
Head over to any Ashphone store now and discover the new Como collection. Ashphone, feel it, know it.
Brush, 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 brush your teeth. Brush, 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 2 times a day. Brush with Kel-Kit.
Hello, my friends. My name is Kel-Kit's toothpaste.
Wow.
I was made to be gentle on your gum, but protected. I will protect your teeth from cavity, make your teeth whiter, stronger, keep your mouth fresh all day. And best of all, I'm strawberry flavored. So put on a smile and try me.
That's amazing.
Just try me. That's my job.
If you say so, jump on my brush. Makes your teeth stronger, chicky chicky whiter, chicky chicky stronger. Yay! You did it!
I'm glad you like your new toothpaste. Don't forget to brush both day and night.
Kel-Kits. Happy smile.
Attention all farmers, are you ready to take your crops to the next level? Introducing 3 effective organic composts that will revolutionize your farming practices. ACAP, KCAP and Iricop brings to you the ultimate solution for your fertilizer needs. Introducing the ACAP Grade A, KCAP Equiafua Jinkwa and the Iricop with Cocoa Blend, Palm Blend and Mulch. These are made from locally sourced municipal solid waste, and these are the perfect choice for sustainable farming. Join the organic revolution today. Boost your crop yield, improve soil health, and support sustainable farming practices. Choose ACAP, KCAP, and Iricop organic compost for a greener and bountiful harvest. For your purchase and more information, call the numbers on your screen. Our products are endorsed by Cocoa Board, Planting for Food and Jobs, and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture.
In January 2023 to 42.5% in June 2023. The moderation in inflation was largely supported by monetary policy tightening, relative stability in the exchange rate, and lower and stable export petroleum prices. Cumulatively, the Ghana cedi depreciated by 22.1% against the US dollar in the year to July 17, 2023, compared to 21.1% in the same period in 2022. The cedi, excluding the January 2023 depreciation of 20%, has depreciated by an impressive 1.8% between February and January 17, 2023. Total export receipts, Mr. Speaker, fell by 7.9% to $8.2 billion on the back of lower crude oil export receipts. Crude oil exports declined by 41.3% year-on-year due to a 21.4% decline in volumes and 25.3% fall in prices. Current accounts recorded a provisional surplus of $849 million compared with a deficit of $1.1 billion for the same period, 2022. And gross international reserves dropped from $6.2 billion at the end of December 2022 to $5.3 billion, $2.5 million in June 2023, reflecting BOGs reducing their foreign liabilities in line with the IMF program. Net international reserves received a boost from gold reserves and improved to 2.3 billion US dollars to 1.1 months of import cover compared to 1.4 billion or 0.6 months of import cover recorded at the end of December 2022. Mr. Speaker, on banking developments and the outlook, the banking sector posted unexpected, relatively strong performance during the first half of the year. Despite the lingering effects of the DDEP, the banks have reported increased deposits and investments, higher profitability, and return on equity of over 35%. The impact of the DDEP, such as the increase in non-performing loans, was partly moderated by the timely introduction of temporary regulatory reliefs. In the outlook, the operationalization of the $750 million US dollars Ghana Financial Stability Fund and the planned recapitalization of banks would ensure stability as well as strengthen financial intermediation to support the private sector. Mr. Speaker, the provincial data on government fiscal operation for the first half of 2023 indicate 1. A slower pace in expenditure execution relative.
You're still watching Good Morning Ghana on Metro Television. My name is Audu Moro. My guests are already seated here, and I'll be introducing them shortly. In fact, one of them is here. Hamza Suhini is a leading member of the NDC's communications team. He is also a private legal practitioner. He's joined us for what promises to be a very interesting conversation this morning. Good morning, Hamza. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. And good
It's always
morning
good to see you.
Viewers.
Yeah, it's always good
The
to see you.
feeling is mutual, Moro.
Yeah.
And good morning to our cherished viewers.
Right. But before we proceed with our conversation this morning, let me remind you once again that the Blue Jeans Energy Drink is proudly associated with the Good Morning Ghana show. And as I've always said, Blue Jeans Energy Drink has been on the Ghanaian market for over 20 years, and we already know what it does for the body. It contains quite a number of useful nutrients, so vitamins like vitamin B2, B3, B6, B12, as well as taurine and guarana, which are known to boost your strength and energy, as well as promote high performance and endurance. So Blue Jeans Energy Drink has been tested and it's been tried, and we know it. We can testify that it's indeed the best on the market. So Blue Jeans Energy Drink is for bold and active men and women, and it's in shops nationwide. So for bulk purchases, contact Budget Cash and Carry Limited on 020-812-8190, 020-812-8190, or 055-001-0000. So 055-001-0000. So that's some piece of information that I want to share with you. It's extremely important. Let me also say that this show is live on 94.1 FM. That's what I want to say, 94.1 FM. So we're going to kickstart with a conversation this morning. Now, Hamza, you can tell that, in fact, we're actually expecting Richard Ahiagba, who is the Director of Communications for the NPP. He hopefully should be joining us in the next few minutes. But you notice that almost all the newspapers, understandably and predictably, are replete with the biggest event for today, which is the reading of the budget and government's fiscal policy or government's economic policy. But there's an issue that I want us to have a quick conversation on before we get on with that. Now, if you look at today's Daily Guide newspaper, Daily Guide this morning is reporting that the NIB has released Gift Yowari Mensah, and her picture is right there. The story is on page 3. Now, Jibril Abdul Razak is reporting that Gifty Yowari Mensah, a former deputy director of the National Service Authority, has been released by the National Intelligence Bureau following her detention for her alleged involvement in some ghost names on the NSA payroll. The current member of the Executive Committee of the Ghana Football Association was arrested and detained by the NIB over the weekend, and initial efforts by her lawyer and other individuals to get her released on bail proved futile. Daily Guide has gathered that she underwent interrogations by officers of the Bureau and was later released on an inquiry bail following her cooperation with investigators. It is not clear what her role in the alleged scandal is and the offenses for which she had been arrested by the NIB. It is also not clear whether a caution statement had been taken from her or if any charges had been preferred against her following her arrest, detention, and subsequent interrogation. But it is expected that she will be invited back to the NIB for further interrogations over the coming days or weeks regarding the scandal. Now, Gifty Owari-Mensah returned to Ghana on March 4, 2025, after she had been out of the country since the December 7, 2024 election. Her absence led some to speculate she was absconding from justice over her alleged role in the about 80,000 ghost name scandal at the NSA, where monthly allowances were allegedly paid to non-existing personnel over a period of time. Her return coincided with the arrest of former Deputy Director of Operations at the NSA, Kweku Ohene-Jan, popularly known as Osonoba, who was detained by the NIB in connection with the scandal. Moments after her arrival in the country, Minority Leader in Parliament Alexander Apanyomaki indicated that former NSA employee was willing to submit herself to NIB for any investigation in respect of the alleged scandal. He clarified that Gifty Owari-Mensah was not on that social media, was not on the run, but rather on holiday, pointing out that social media escalated the rumors of her absconding from justice. He said Madam Owari-Mensah's legal team was in contact with NIB, whether the NIB has against, and whether the NIB, and whatever the NIB has against her would have to be done within the process of law. He also stated that the New Patriotic Party is not against accountability, and if the new government needs former appointees to explain certain matters, it is within their rights to do so, and if it needs investigations, there will be no problem. What is important is to follow due process, and once due process is being followed, why not? Mr. Apanyomaki also stated that as far as he knew, no state official harassed Madam Owari-Mensah on her arrival in Ghana. Now, I've had a number of calls asking why the fixation with Gifty of Owari-Mensah. And before you do that, let me say that Richard Ahiagba, a very, very good friend of the show, has joined us. Richard Ahiagba is the Director of Communications for the New Patriotic Party. He's with us now. Good morning. Richard, it's always a pleasure seeing you. And I hope you're doing well.
Quite well.
You look very good in your smock.
I haven't worn one in a while, so maybe that's why.
Yeah. Who provides you this? I mean, the person must be very good at their craft.
Yes.
From
right from source. Yes.
Okay.
Right from source.
Remember me when they have been supplied.
When
Not for free. I'll pay.
Either way. If I remember you, you get Tomorrow. Good morning to you. Good morning to my brother here.
Right.
Good morning.
Yeah. Anyway, so today is a big day, isn't it? And the expectations are high. But I was just telling Hamza that before we look at the budget, we delve into the budget conversation. There's an issue here which I'd want to ask the two of you to tell, because I've been struggling to get some answers to it. And as I was telling Hamza that quite a number of people have called to try and get me to explain why it appears there's a setting, the focus is on Gifty of Owari-Mensah when she's not the boss and NSS, and the fact that there's the director himself, that's Osiasibi.
Yeah.
And so what has happened to ultimate, responsibility? And so people want to understand why here. And I've just read a story about her detention at the NIB and her subsequent release and so on. So, Hamza, can you hazard any guess as to why the focus on Gifty Owari-Mensah?
Good morning to my brother. And of course, our challenge viewers out there. Moro.
Yeah.
It is, I do not think that I share in that concern. But
okay.
There seems to be much attention
on
our sister. The reality is that, you see, in this field of politics, you more or less drive the needed attention on yourself as an active political player. And if you look at those who have managed their place over the years, as far as the deputy positions are concerned, I think that she has so far been the most popular, largely because of the nature of her politicking. I am not saying that her politicking is one that should be condemned, but clearly, she's been a leading member of the New Patriotic Party in terms of canvassing for votes in the last election, and to a very large extent, she's been quite vociferous when it comes to propagating the policies of the NPP. So within the politics of the NPP, I'm sure that she is much more popular than the likes of Ohini, is it Ohiniba? Ohinijan, who also happens to
Osonoba.
be,
Yes,
who also happens to be a deputy director of the NSA. So clearly, I think that it has nothing to do with special interest by the state agencies in her person. What seemed to be driving that interest largely emanates from her own personality and her activeness as far as our political landscape is concerned. For me, that is what I see.
Okay.
What I know, as a matter of fact, is that the state institutions are going about their investigative mandates. They have invited Osonoba. They have invited, I'm told, they have invited many other people who are in one way or the other connected to the said scandal. So her invitation is not novel. It's just part of the investigative process. And you also need to know, probably because of the fact that she was out of the country and people were of the view that she was trying to abscond from the investigative processes, that probably also generated some kind of interest in her person. But to a very large extent, I think that we should allow the state institutions to work and be convinced that at the end of the day, whatever report is going to come out would inform the Attorney General as to how to proceed with the said case. But this is clearly in line with what the NDC promised. We indicated from day one that we would do everything within our power to ensure accountability, because we know that in rebuilding the economy, Ghanaians would want to see accountability on the part of those who led us here. And if we fail to do so, we would have a tough time convincing the Ghanaian people to support our policies and ride with us on this tedious journey of resetting our country and, most importantly, putting our economy back on track. So for me, I think that we should not belabor the point. She just happens to be one of the subjects of interest as far as this investigation is concerned. And our institutions are doing what they need to do to ensure that we get to the bottom of this troubling, unfortunate dissipation of state resources by people who are mandated to man our state institutions. But this should also constitute a wake-up call to the many young appointees by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. You see, when they say that when dry bones are mentioned in Proverbs, old women ordinarily become uncomfortable. So for many of those who have been given the opportunity to serve, they should know that in the future, they will be called upon to account as far as their stewardship is concerned. And that is the more reason why, as members of the National Democratic Congress, mandated or favored to serve, we must do everything in our power to leave a legacy that will not only make our appointing authority proud, in the unlikely event that we lose power in the next 12 or 16 years, but ourselves and our families. That must not be lost on any appointee. What is happening to the MPP today is something that can afford our current appointees, and they must take a cue from it and know that they have been sent to these institutions not to engage in business as usual, take advantage of state resources, but they are sent there to be active members of the desire to more or less bring about reasonable change in our country, and workable one at that. So for me, it is not just about the NPP alone, it's a double-edged sword. Those of us who are mandated to lead must be mindful of what is likely to befall us if we do not discharge our responsibilities.
Do you think that this, for you, brings to the fore this age-old conversation which keeps coming up about the interaction or the engagement with the public, which is from these state investigative institutions? What kinds of engagements they should be having with the public and updating them on some of these activities that they engage in, so that the public gets to know about why somebody has been invited, and even what has happened so far with investigations, so that people are not in doubt as to exactly what is happening to who. I mean, somebody has my number, the person has called me. The person doesn't have anybody, perhaps doesn't have anybody's number to the NIB, and so is also in 6s and 7s as to exactly what is happening. Do you think that this brings this whole conversation to the fore? And I don't know where you stand, whether institutions like NIB, National Security and Co. should have a PR unit to sort of carry and to update, to carry the Ghanaians along and to update them on the activities?
Absolutely. When it comes to the establishment of PR units, I share in that concern. It is important for them to have their own outfit that would be more or less mandated to engage with the Ghanaian public. But you see, we are dealing with investigations. We must also be careful about how willing we are to open our security agencies to media scrutiny. I am sure that those who have been extended invitations, the letters inviting them would have given them a fair idea of the questions that the NIB intends to ask. And they are also given an opportunity to appear with their lawyers. That should suffice from where I stand, because it is not an investigation targeted at the whole country. There are some specific individuals who have been invited. It's just like the Ghana Police Service.
Right.
From the CID unit, from time to time, they call people for investigations. They are not obligated in any way to make public the reason why they are inviting Mr. A or B, but that person would have known.
Right.
So we should be careful in terms of how we expand the frontiers of so-called freedom of disseminating information. But from where I sit, I think what should be our focus is, if you are calling for the establishment of PR units, simply to engage with the public in terms of the organizational identity or activities, I do not have a problem with that. But when it comes to specific cases of investigations, that is where I'm a bit uncomfortable, because it is not every information that you want to be out there, especially when you are still carrying out an investigation. Because if care is not taken, you would have succeeded in damaging the reputation of those subjects or of those people who constitute subjects of your investigation. And maybe at the end of the day, you may not deem it appropriate to proceed with such investigations. So I'm sure that they are also a bit reluctant to do so, largely because of the perception that might pose to subjects of their investigation. So it is a discussion we can continue to have from where we sit, but let us be a bit cautious, especially when it comes to issues of investigations. I am a bit reluctant to recommend that the NIB or national security should be engaging the media daily, letting them know the state of the extent they have gone as far as these investigations are concerned. The most important thing is that if the subject knows why he's invited, he or she is invited, and has been afforded an opportunity to appear with a lawyer, that should be sufficient at this stage for me.
Okay. Richard, 2 questions. 1, have you also wondered why Gifty? And 2, must we get to a point where an investigative institutions like the NIB should be periodically updating Ghanaians on these kinds of investigations so that it leaves nobody in doubt as to why somebody is being picked up and for what and what has happened to the person, so that you don't leave vacuum for all kinds of speculations and misinformation and disinformation and so on?
Good morning, Moro, and to your viewers this morning. I think that it's an interesting question, your second one. I think certainly there must be a way to let the public know, because we all have interest in these matters. To the extent, of course, if you have a PR unit, they know what information to disclose, what not to disclose, so they'll be able to manage the information better. And that will keep everybody at ease, and people would know what is going on. But I am worried or perhaps concerned about the use of NIB predominantly for these investigations. I prefer maybe the police would have done a better job, because and then probably a bit more calming for the public, because we relate to the police every day, and so it is not a novelty to be invited by the police. The norm is there. But a sudden injection of NIB into our space in the manner it's going on actually is creating some concern for people. And I think that just like we would want the military to be less visible, I think NIB, they do very important work. We should not make them too familiar with the public by allowing them to do their behind-the-scenes work that ultimately improve our public safety and security, but not necessarily in our faces the way it is happening. It's not as if it's wrong, but I think that it will over time make them too familiar and maybe not good for the image or the performance MO of the institution. So for me, to that extent, I'd say that the government takes a second look at its use of NIB to pursue these investigations. But that's their decision to make. As a concerned citizen, I think that it will be better if we have the police do it. And if I were a police officer, I feel my role usurped somewhat. But that's not a point to quibble about. But I think that for good reason, we should use the police better than the NIB. Gifty, I wouldn't say that they are targeting her per se, but she worked there. She had a responsibility. She discharged there. The orders of or the structure of the institution may be clear to us, but maybe the workings at the institution perhaps gave her a certain responsibility, which responsibility scope or area is under investigation. So even though she was a deputy, maybe a special task that was given to her is somewhat the focus of that investigation. So she may appear to be targeted or be the one center of the investigation, even though the boss is there. But I see that perhaps will be the reason. But my concern would be that the government pursue the issue and not a person, and ultimately respecting the rights, civil and human rights of these individuals that are being investigated for what work they were supposed to have been done by them for the people of Ghana. And if that is done, then would look forward to a fair process where people's rights are respected, where the investigations are done that leads to prosecutions, not persecutions. When that is done, I think that all Ghanaians will all be confident in the outcome. As a party, we appreciate the accountability system. We are advocates of that. And so we believe that people must serve the interest of Ghana, but when people end up in office serving their interest, we are clear in our minds that that's not something would contain us as a party. But the only thing we make note of to the government is to do so according to law and ensure that people are not abused and needlessly harassed, and that they are taken through the process as established by law, and in the end the results will be accepted by us and by all. I think that's really what all of us sign on to coming into the public space, that we'll do our job diligently and according to law.
Well, Hamza Simpson suggests that perhaps it's because she's more visible. You know, she's all over social media, and it's also perhaps it's a kind of politicking. That's why perhaps her investigations appears to be the eye of the storm. But otherwise, he also thinks that really it's much ado about nothing. Anyway, so, but maybe the name, I mean, in itself, NIB, why not? Why not?
I mean, you have the Yoko, you can use. Yeah, you can
because
use
you see, this is what you
Yoko,
mentioned
police,
NIB. People say, are you going to the? Are
Yeah,
you talking
the
about the
bank,
bank?
yeah.
You know, I mean, like in America, you have FBI,
Yeah.
Federal Bureau of
Yeah.
Investigation. We can also have a National Bureau of Investigation. What is
Yeah, I
NIB
mean,
doing?
I have my own. I keep saying, this morning when I was coming, I think your producer Annie called me and asked where I was. I was at BNI. I mean, that's that's what I'll say. I'll say that. I'll say that way. It sounds rhymes well. People know what it is. By NIB, people are asking, what is that?
Yes.
It takes some consciousness to come to know that it's the same old BNI. But it's fine. I mean, if that's what they want to check. But it's better. BNI is okay. But
BNI, or even, like I said, or even NBI.
Yeah.
You know, National Bureau of Investigations.
You know,
Anyway,
back in the day,
if they're watching,
when you mention BNI, it's a big deal.
Yes,
You understand?
yes.
Or now NIB is a big deal.
Yes.
And that's why, for me, I think that just use the police. They have the expertise, they have the capacity to investigate, so that we don't, you know.
Do you smell some kind of a rebranding of a sort? You know that you know what they exude as soon as you mention BNI.
And I mean, what exactly is happening? We're not rushing anywhere.
Yeah.
Nobody is dying or anything. We just want to find the facts.
Right.
The police can do that. Let them do it.
Let them do it.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, you have something quickly on
yes,
that?
just quickly. You see, when it comes to the issue of investigations, I think that the state at the end of the day is clothed with the power to decide which security agency it wants to use to carry out certain kinds of investigations. So there shouldn't be any problem. This is not the first time we are dealing with the BNI, now NIB.
Yeah.
I think that all political parties have had the occasion to use it where it considers it appropriate to do so. So this government is also doing the same. If there are certain allegations that the government is of the view that the CID is better equipped to investigate same, I'm sure that the government would not hesitate in activating the laws within that sector to carry out such investigations. But when it comes to others that the government is of the view or strong opinion that it should be handled by the NIB, so be it. Government would explore that option, because what you need to know is that what is happening is not outside the law. The NIB is equally mandated under our Securities and Intelligence Act 2020 to carry out such investigations. But at the end of the day, it is the government that will decide which agency is appropriate for any allegation that comes to the government. I do not think that we should try to read any kind of meanings to it. Unfortunately, but that is the nature of our political space. But from where I sit, I hold a strong view that we should not take away that option from government. This government knows better. I'm pretty much convinced that as we move on, when there are other issues that come up, government considers it appropriate to refer it to the CID. Government would not hesitate to do that. But if we are intimidated by the name BNI or NIB, that is something we can talk about. But for me, it has nothing to do with intimidation. They are all carrying out investigations. And so since it is protected by law, and the basis of such investigations can be found in law, let us allow them to continue to do what they are mandated to do under our laws.
Okay.
Just a quick one.
Okay.
It's really not, and I think I made a point, it's really not about taking away the option from the government, but it is about creating a certain impression, okay, within the space that perhaps we don't have, we don't want to use the police, which then sets a basis for so many other questions to be asked. Is it that we don't have confidence in the police? Is it that we think they can't do the job? Because ordinarily, when you hear about this investigation, the first thing that comes into mind is that the police, okay? But where you make a conscious effort to go beyond the police or sidestep the police to bring in another investigative authority or agency, it creates doubts. And what I'm telling you, I'm hearing people are talking, the people within the service are concerned. And so it's almost like a usurpation, even though they have the rights and they're mandated to do so. Ordinarily, you would expect the police to be doing it. So it's really not trying to gag the government or limit the options they have in terms of just being reduced to using the police, but it's to say that there's some public expectation and there's some norm that has been established over time, and that the regularity of things, you want the police to lead these things and not to create the impression that the NIB is the only institution that can do that. What the people know, I think, should be the preferred option. The police, for me, is the best suited institution to do that. It takes away all these tension about any invitation, because it escalates the appearance of it, the sound of it, and makes it appear as though that something egregious is happening, and heightens public tension about the matter. Whereas if it was a police invitation, a police investigation, it would be commonplace, and people would embrace that much more easier than the alternative. But not to suggest that the government is doing any wrong by using NIB. They can use whatever institution they want or agency they want, but I'm just saying that what would sit well with the public would have been the police.
Okay, Moro, just quickly. You see, it's rather unfortunate that we are going around.
We're relitigating this.
Yes, but you see, the point simply is that I indicated earlier that the government is clothed with that options to make a choice. It doesn't mean that the government is sidestepping the CID when it comes to such investigations. A clear example is the letter President Mahama wrote through his executive secretary to the Inspector General of Police, directing that they should investigate the election-related violence that occurred both in 2020 and 2024. So clearly, the president did not refer that to the NIB. It was referred to the police. So you cannot, by any stretch of imagination, conclude that there seems to be an agenda to sidestep the Ghana Police Service when it comes to these investigations. This only lends credence to the point I made earlier, that it is about choice and options available to government. If the government, at the end of the day, based on national security briefings, deems it appropriate that the police CID should handle a particular investigation, it will be done. If at the end of the day they deem it appropriate that NIB should do so, it will be done. But Moro, at the end of the day, when it comes to tensions, we create it in this country. We've been in this country when even the CID extended investigations to political operatives and MPs. What happened at the CID head office? Party foot soldiers besieged it. So as for tensions, it can come from our own actions. You remember when Kennedy Agyapong was invited, when President Mills was president, what didn't you witness in this country? So as for the tensions, irrespective of where you go, the fact that even the CID is investigating doesn't mean that we may be spared the tensions associated with such investigations. At the end of the day, the critical question to ask is that, are those investigations done in accordance with law? If those investigations are done in accordance with law, we must respect it, and the option of government to decide based on national security intelligence available to it, which a specific agency is mandated or it deems appropriate to carry out such investigation. We should not believe at that point. We should not try to create storm out of nothing when in actual fact there's nothing wrong with the process.
So the Good Morning Ghana production
I know
team
you want to do the economy.
deem it appropriate.
But is
to get into the conversation about the economy.
Economy, that's fine. You just
and the budget.
But I'm just again, it's okay. Yes. That's really what we should talk about. But you see, this one.
Yes.
My brothers should understand that what I am saying is what people are saying. There's concern in the space. But what the point of it is that you want to create a certain public optic about what you're doing. People don't understand why suddenly the NIB is so dominant. This matter can be investigated by the police. He's into a space where I say he will explain from now till whenever time you keep explaining. The point is that it doesn't look good. You can justify it, but it's not okay. People feel that let the police do it. The police themselves feel like what? Go and investigate election-related matter. They conducted the election. They supervised the election. NIB didn't supervise the election directly, so they supervise it, go and investigate it, fine. If it comes to that, you tell them to do it. But when it comes to other investigation, which is within their purview, that's why you go and take it to NIB. We're saying that the right thing...
The election-related violence you just indicated shows that it fell within their purview because they manned the election process. So mandating them to do so.
Let's not interrupt each other. Let's not interrupt each other. The point I am making is that the thing is not good. You can justify it all you want. We're saying that you have the choice to do it. We have free will, right? But how you use your free will can be questionable. It doesn't mean you don't have the right to do it. You can do it. But we're saying that you are creating a certain impression in the minds of the public by using what you're using. It's not wrong. You can use it, but you're appearing to rub the public the wrong way. And they must take a look at it.
Okay. I disagree with that reason.
It's okay. We're here to agree to disagree.
When they were doing
I guess his point is clear. Which is, people are free to do what they want to do, but people are also free to critique it. I think that's the point you're making.
And I'm sure that it applies to the
of course,
when they were also using the NIB.
We are not in power, my brother.
I'm just telling you that
we're not in power. We're talking about what you are doing.
All right, so let's get on. Let's move on with our lives.
That is why I feel that there's nothing wrong with it. I would have condemned you when you did.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
There's nothing to condemn because we're not calling anybody.
You did. Let's move on. When Nana became president,
yesterday. We're
talking about the laws of the country.
We have bread and butter.
I hope we're not going to interrupt each other.
We have bread and butter issues. We have bread and butter issues to deal with. I beg you. At the end of the day, it comes down to what is in our pocket.
You should put bread and butter on the table whilst you talk about it.
Andy's listening. So anyway, so daily guide. Now you would realize that which is understandable. I mean, the different newspapers are reporting from different angles, which is beautiful. That's great. So Daily Guide starts with broad strokes, which is what is going to happen today, and then Ghanaian Times looks at it from a different angle, so with a daily graphic. So Daily Guide says that, and that's by Ernest Kofi Edu. It reports that the Minister of Finance, Dr. Castle Ato-Forsing, is set to present the 2025 budget statement and economic policy today, marking the first budget of the second term of the Mahama administration, with tax cuts and economic restructuring high on the agenda. This budget aims to set the tone for the government's fiscal direction. The finance minister has already announced significant policy shifts, including the scrapping of e-levy, COVID tax, and other nuisance tax. Dr. Forson, during his vetting before Parliament Appointments Committee, assured Ghanaians that despite eliminating some taxes, the government has a robust plan to bridge the revenue gap. It continues. He says he outlined an ambitious strategy to boost tax revenue from 13.8% to 18% of GDP without imposing new levies on the populace. The controversial e-levy and COVID tax, which have been widely criticized, will be among the first to go. The noise with these taxes does not justify the imposition, Dr. Forson stated, arguing that their removal would not negatively impact the economy. As Ghana navigates economic recovery, the finance minister hinted that the government might seek additional funding from the International Monetary Fund during the country's ongoing 3-year program with the lender. We are committed to working with the IMF, but we also want to ensure that we can raise financing, additional finance, working with the IMF and other domestic and international partners, Dr. Forson said ahead of a meeting with an IMF delegation currently in Accra. And the paper talks about Mahama's economic vision, cost-cutting measures, and fiscal discipline expectations, and so on. Then you come to today's Ghanaian Times, and the Ghanaian Times is looking at it more from the expectations of the public, rightfully so. And that is on page 12 of the paper. Now, it says that it says reduce taxes, cost of living, create unemployment. Public urges government. Now, Kingsley Asari is reporting that the government must introduce measures to reduce taxes and bring relief to businesses in the upcoming 2025 budget to spur production and help reduce the cost of living. A section of the public has said. The Ghanaian Times, in an interview with a section of the public on the expectations from the upcoming 2025 budget and economic policy of the government yesterday, urged the government to broaden the tax net to raise more revenue locally instead of relying on borrowing. According to them, an incessant borrowing over the years contributed to the rising public debt of the country. As such, it was important for the budget to explore new areas of allocations to complete major unfinished projects dotted across the country. Those interviewed further stressed the need for the government to boost agriculture through targeted incentives to increase food production and reduce the cost of food. Then, if you look at the daily graphic, that has the picture of Professor Bokwing, who is a finance and is a finance economics lecturer at the University of Business. University of Ghana Business School. Yeah, he's a lecturer there. Now, that story is on page 13 of today's paper, and it says that Professor Bokwing, IEA support abolition of taxes, but argued that betting tax be maintained. So Dixon Walanyo Doche says a professor of finance, Godfrey Bokwing, and a public policy think tank, the Institute of Economic Affairs, have urged the simplification of the tax regime to make it taxpayer friendly. In an interview yesterday, Professor Bokwing said the government promised that it would move the economy from taxation to production and that the 2024 budget should give meaning to that. Also, the IEA in a policy, so he's talking about the 2025 budget, I think that's what it says. Also, the IEA in a policy brief in the run-up to the presentation of the budget said high, multiple and complex taxes risk raking in less revenue due to evasion than a simpler and less complex system. Professor Bokwing, an economist and a professor of finance at the University of Ghana, and the IEA supported the government's move to abolish some taxes, encouraging it to adopt administratively digitalization and innovative measures as well as expenditure rationalization to close the revenue gap. As part of a raft of proposed measures, the IEA said the NDC government promised abolition of e-levy, COVID-19 levy, emissions tax were in order because those taxes were either nuisance or obsolete taxes. However, the betting tax is useful for both revenue and deterrence purposes and should be retained, although it can reduce from 10% to 5%, the IEA said. Hamza, are you able to give us some kind of what I will call it, any filler as to what to expect today? I mean, what philosophy is going to underline or undergird today's budget? Two questions in one.
Moro, I, just like any Ghanaian out there, I equally have my expectations, but I think that my expectations are grounded largely on the promises we made in the last election. So, and my position is that my expectations are in threefold. First, I expect an honest statement on the state of the economy that His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama and the NDC inherited. I know that we've gotten some pieces of information in terms of the nature of the economy that was inherited, but I expect the finance minister to use this budget to elaborate a little more on the kind of economy that we have inherited as a party. Moro, this is important for two reasons. First of all, it prepares the Ghanaian people to expect or to be measured in their expectations when it comes to our agenda to reset, in the sense that they will be more than willing to support government in any form or shape to ensure that we more or less reset our economy and bring it back to life. Secondly, it will also serve as a timely reminder to Ghanaian electorates that anytime you are given an opportunity to go to the polls to elect leaders, it requires deep introspection. We must ask the critical questions. We should not just vote on the basis of the fact that our parents are members of a particular political party or we come from a certain region, for which reason we must necessarily associate with a particular political party. This information is vital. It must prepare the minds of Ghanaians so that we all begin to demonstrate some measure of accountability in our lives. We would not just be expecting accountability on the part of our political operatives alone. Ghanaians must begin to pay critical attention to the policies presented to them during elections, and most importantly, the credibility of those driving such promises. Because we all saw the nature of the promises that were made to the good people of this country somewhere 2016. And today we are living the consequences of that decision Ghanaians made by electing Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the NPP into office. So we need to know the extent of the damage so that Ghanaians can be guided going forward. Secondly, I am expecting solutions. Moro, you see, Ghanaians elected this party into government to solve problems that are known. So I expect the budget, quite apart from the promises that were made, like betting tax to go. Of course, I'm confident that from where I sit, and based on the information available to me, I'm confident that the betting tax will go. I'm pretty confident that e-levy would go because I know President Mahama. This is a man who takes his words seriously. So I'm quite convinced that these taxes would definitely go. But Moro, I also expect solutions because we are at a stage where urgency is required to resuscitate our economy. So I expect bold solutions, for instance, that will bring an end to the perennial problem of student teacher training and nursing allowances. I want a system that would address it to at least resolve the issue of arrears that on daily basis we are confronted with when it comes to the payment of those salaries or allowances. I need practicable solutions, workable ones that can address that problem. I'm also expecting solutions in terms of our appetite for borrowing. I expect this government through the budget to manifest or reflect our desire to be responsible when it comes to borrowing, so that at least, if for nothing at all, we can bring our debt stock down. The initial steps are commendable, but I want to see a concrete policy in that regard. And in taking away some of the taxes I just indicated, e-levy, I want to see an alternative way of doing things in terms of mobilizing revenue, so that at least the incidence of any form of taxation that we are likely to encounter would not be on the ordinary Ghanaian. The reason why we are taking out e-levy and betting tax is largely to give some space to the ordinary Ghanaian, because we understand that we are in economic crisis and they bear the brunt of such difficulties. So it is not prudent for us to be burdening them more with such avoidable taxes. And if government is taking away these taxes, I expect another novelty to at least plug the holes to be able to make up for the revenue that government is likely to lose as a result of taking out those taxes. And I don't expect an introduction of a tax that would put the incidence on the ordinary Ghanaian. And I am pretty much convinced, once again, more, and I can assure the good people of this country that from where I sit, I see responsibility on the part of the Finance Minister and His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama. So quite clearly, solutions will be provided in this budget. I also expect solutions to the age-long problem of our state institutions. You heard not long ago that Cocoa Board is heavily indebted. ECG is heavily indebted. Many of our state institutions are struggling. I want the budget to at least manifest a desire on the part of this government to change the trajectory, to guarantee some stability and sustainability when it comes to even growth as far as our state institutions are concerned. These are my expectations, and I am convinced that the budget would meet those expectations. But Moro, beyond the expectations, I want to see growth in the economy. I want to see the economy throwing out jobs, just like any other Ghanaian. And once again, I am happy to announce that based on the experience of President Mahama and that of Dr. Atuforsen, I am pretty much convinced that this economy, this budget, will manifest a desire to create jobs and to ensure sustainable growth. Because you heard the Finance Minister indicated long ago, as I think during the National Economic Dialogue, he stated clearly that when it comes to our problems, there are threefold. We are dealing with a situation where our wages seem to be more than 70% of our GDP. Then, quite apart from that, we are dealing with unreasonable subsidies in our energy sector. And there's also ballooning interest payments. That makes it difficult for government to have revenue to invest in other areas that probably would contribute meaningfully to sustainable growth. And as Finance Minister and President, the two of them have given their commitment to changing that face of our economic challenges. So I expect something tangible in that regard. And most importantly, more, I expect a solution to the lack of identifiable funding source to free senior high school. Because the NDC in opposition indicated that if given the mandate, we'll do everything in our power to make the free senior high school better. And one way we can make it better is to identify a dedicated source of funding to the institution, to the program. And I expect that level of novelty from the government. And once again, I'm convinced that the government is more than capable in terms of identifying a dedicated source of funding to free senior high school. So for me, it is about growth. And if you listen to His Excellency President Mahama, I think that he gave us an insight into what to expect in terms of his agenda for transformation, where he spoke about the agriculture economic transformation agenda, the ETA, when he appeared before Parliament to present his State of the Nation address. Clearly, he has indicated a commitment to at least providing farmlands and agribusiness training to over 30,000 of our Ghanaian youth. That is why he termed the AgriNext program, so that they can contribute meaningfully to agriculture production in this country, which undoubtedly would have an impact on even our exchange rate and the amount of money we use in this country to import agriculture products. I'm told is in excess of about $2.4 billion US. That is something we can change. And on top of that, he's indicated his commitment to also establish the farm service centers that would make it possible for young people to have access to agricultural implements or inputs to support the agricultural drive of this country. Again, the poultry industry, I think we spend in excess of about 400 million USD annually to import poultry products into the country. He also spoke about the Poultry to Table initiative, where he wants, or he's determined, to make that a thing of the past by making sure that at least we produce 95% or more of our poultry needs locally.
Is that what has been termed the Akokon-Ketenkete?
Absolutely.
Project?
So yes, that is it. So clearly, the agenda to create jobs are there. So what I expect from the Finance Minister is, again, dedicated source of funding, identifiable source of funding for these laudable initiatives to drive growth in our country. Because if growth is driven in those sectors, rest assured that jobs will be thrown out. Again, depending on how we handle the tax rationalization process, I can assure you that private sector will become largely competitive. And this budget is going to be different from all other budgets. And the reason why most of us are very optimistic about the outcome of this budget is largely because of the personalities driving it. We are not having a finance minister with a vested interest in our private space who has companies running. Atuforsen is not that kind of a person. So whatever policies that Atuforsen is likely to champion, Doctor, clearly would be policies that would inure to the benefit of the private sector and to a very large extent the public sector. And that is commendable. And that is why we should be excited. Because he's not going to be engineering policies that will benefit his own company. Because he's not running companies out there. His Excellency President Mahama has a legacy to protect. His objective is to leave a legacy that he and the National Democratic Congress can be proud of. You can rest assured that the two of them will do what is required to bring life back to our private sector and ensure fair competition amongst businessmen and to some reasonable extent provide the needed support for our entrepreneurs. Instead of killing businesses under the guise of rationalization or cleaning up the banking sector, this government will do everything within its power to protect the financial space so that at least my brother or my auntie in the Upper East region who may not be able to access funds from NIB or another state bank, maybe ADB or any international bank like Stanbic, can also walk into a savings and loan scheme that is operational within his or her district and have access to loans to at least contribute her quota to national development. When we closed, as a result of our reckless handling of the financial space, when we closed many of these financial institutions without incentives to support them to operate, we just did not make it difficult for Ghanaians to get jobs, but we also succeeded in closing financial opportunities to many of our compatriots who are out of the capital city and who only rely on some of these savings and loan schemes to survive, be it in the Upper West region, Upper East region. So I expect a formidable policy that seeks to make financing available to many of our people, irrespective of the part of the country they find themselves. And I am convinced that His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama and that of Dr. Atuforsen are more than capable when it comes to meeting the expectations of the Ghanaian people.
You initially raised a concern about our avarice or our appetite. That's the word I should be using. Our appetite for borrowing. And you want to know what the new economic policy is going to be when it comes to our quest to want to borrow and overborrow to the point where we struggle to pay back. So, you know, the finance minister held a social media engagement on X Spaces with it was on Sunday night, and it was actually put together by this guy called Kalije, who is a social media influencer. Yes. And it was an issue that came up during the interaction with the young people, and they were saying that, look, I own a business, I'm going for a loan, interest rates are very high because government is borrowing too through treasury bills, T-bills, and so a lot of these lenders find lending government more attractive than giving it to the private person, you know, for them to use as capital to do their job. And it was a big issue that came up. And the finance minister said something, but I'm not going to read that to you because I have to take a short break. I'll come back to Richard Ahiangbo on that as well. As for Richard, I know one of the issues that he wants to raise. Because remember that before this reading of this budget, three key things have happened. We've had NET, which is a National Economic Dialogue. We've also seen a situation where, like I said, the finance minister has been engaging the youth on X Spaces. And also we've seen the finance minister at Makola engaging our mothers and brothers and sisters and our mothers and uncles who are selling there. And I saw a post that Richard Ahiangbo put up on social media. I thought it was quite interesting as well. So please stay with us. This is Good Morning Ghana. Don't go anywhere.
Who are you? Who are you? Charlie, I'll be you from the future who doesn't sleep on that slice of bread you call mattress anymore. Don't some slippers then follow me.
It is part of mattress within the front there.
Yeah?
Happiness mattress where the dead for.
Wait, what are you doing? Wow! No damage at all.
Not only durable, but also super comfortable. Come on, try it.
Nothing day like Ash Foam. Enjoy full body support and unparalleled comfort for a restful sleep.
Don't forget your keys.
Get the premium sleep experience with mattresses from Ash Foam. Visit any of our showrooms nationwide or at ashfoam.com.
Fire pomudi ni agobi Ghana funi aje if you say ya your local spices na ya frafra dia ya sankofa natural spice me de gumi jollof mu me misti wa hoduma e ma ne dance
Stanley, the barbecue the gone.
sankofa natural spices and one you use 100% natural said the happen
Adofo mamu huge mistake sankofa natural spices the
FDA ejodi nkratu yatu
Anti-cavity, gum protection, brighter teeth, and fresh breath.
I'm a fair missy way.
The patch of Bantama.
Matias.
That's a cycle.
It's her smile, the fresh breath.
me jidi say we use Kel 360 toothpaste some me kind Kel 360 toothpaste
Gaskia, Kel 360 toothpaste. It's a gum protector. Onim jom kasa. You know what I'm saying? Kel 360 did the way. It's cool mint. Gives me fresh breath and your confidence booster.
you so feeling kika when you know Kel 360 toothpaste.
Happy
Kel 360 toothpaste, anti-cavity, gum protection, brighter teeth, and fresh breath. Kel, happy smile. This advert is FDA approved.
Customer, I don't know who to say.
Malaria been actually me man no man still.
One of them give us.
Give us a solid.
Yeah, sorry. But lost of so give us here and turn down.
What's over that song? That's when they give us the and some down.
Give us a bad mixture.
Never try the and some down.
Customer. Give us a turn now.
Onuya kayo oba wa fafuro nom de o ma no bonu fo nom akwada woni mfie dumie no ono nso nom.
You the answer to my prayers. You with me everywhere. You're my angel, miracle. You're all I need tonight. Give me shelter from the rain. You breathe life in me again. You're my angel, miracle. You're all I need to know tonight.
Mommy.
Michelle say.
Fe.
Different era, better result. Time has changed and time has brought Kel Choco Toothpaste. Healthy gums, anti-cavity, fresher breath, and it whitens teeth. Kel Choco Toothpaste. Sankofa.
Yenchi, Kel Chocolate Toothpaste.
Happy smile.
This advert is FDA approved.
I'm a branch manager. Of course,
I accept only quality and affordable printed souvenirs for my promotional campaigns.
I'm the head of academic affairs of a very important institution in Ghana. Of course, we only deal with quality, reliable printing companies for our institution's printing materials. I'm talking about appointed time printing.
Appointed Time Printings. We take pride in our extensive print scope that transform your ideas into captivating visual masterpieces. We delve into the core objectives and vision of each print project. Precision printing is at the heart of our printing process as we meet your tight deadlines. Our rigorous inspection, color verification, and overall printing excellence are assured. 20 years of printing excellence. It's always a pleasure working with you to create a vibrant, dazzling printing experience that gives you a masterpiece. Appointed Time Printing, your world of quality and affordable printing.
Attention all farmers, are you ready to take your crops to the next level? Introducing 3 effective organic composts that will revolutionize your farming practices. ACAP, KCAP and Iricor brings to you the ultimate solution for your fertilizer needs. Introducing the ACAP Grade A, KCAP Equiafua Jinkwa, and the Iricop with cocoa blends, palm blend and mulch. These are made from locally sourced municipal solid waste, and these are the perfect choice for sustainable farming. Join the organic revolution today. Boost your crop yield, improve soil health, and support sustainable farming practices. Choose ACAP, KCAP and Iricop organic compost for a greener and bountiful harvest. For your purchase and more information, call the numbers on your screen. Our products are endorsed by COCOBOD, Planting for Food and Jobs, and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture.
You're still live in Good Morning Ghana on Metro Television. My name is Audumuro, and I'm here with a private legal practitioner and a member of the NDC's communications team, Hamza Suhini, and also Richard Ahagba, who is the Director of Communications of the NPP. Both of them are here, and we're having a very interesting conversation about expectations ahead of the reading of the budget by the Finance Minister, Dr. Castle Atto-Forson. Now, Richard, I said something earlier before we took that breather. I said a couple of things have happened before the big day today, and we've seen the National Economic Dialogue where a communique has been issued and a raft of, recommendations have emerged from that event. And then, of course, subsequently, we've seen the Finance Minister himself engage in all kinds of activities. One, he's engaged in some youth session on X basis, and I monitored, and I thought it was a good idea. And also we see him in Makola. Put all of that in context before you delve into what your expectations are.
Yeah. Thank you, Moro. I think that the NDC is now in the arena. They have to show us what they are made of, even though we know what they are made of. They created a certain impression that no, they are cut from a better cloth than what we know. So they are here, and today we'll see what really is in their kitty. I don't know if the Finance Minister will be holding a certain bag, or he'll be holding a backpack, or he will have people carry his document, but somehow he will bring it, and we'll see what's inside it. I feel bad for the NDC. All the indications I'm getting now is not for them to, manage expectations. They're escalating the expectations. See my brother here. Oh, I believe that. No problem.
But he was the same person who said it's important that expectations are managed.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but because you have to do that.
Okay.
You have to do that. Because if you hear from the Finance Minister when he came to Parliament and during his vetting, it was very clear. It's like the tax will go. But now, since yesterday, you saw there's some operation at foot to say that, if anything at all, the betting tax should stay. the reality you're going to face is that the funding gap that will be created, if you take these three tax handles away, how do you fund the budget? How do you fund your programs? And here is a government that came on the wings of we will drive a certain reset agenda that bring better days to Ghana, economic so-and-so to Ghana, when we know that they don't have the capacity for it. But so I feel bad for them. But anyway, before I get into this conversation, yesterday, Ghana Statistical Service released their data on the economy. And this is the first time we've had an instance like that because you would normally have the budget read with third quarter data, and then the outturns for the fourth quarter will be reported much later in the year. And so the conversation is settled by what they released yesterday. Now, what the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, erroneously characterized as an economy that has been mishandled, is actually an economy that is exceedingly, of course, we've known this all along, because if you look at a third quarter turnout of 6.2% GDP, then you are clear in your mind that that economy is a much better economy.
In fact, the Ghanaian Times reports it.
Yeah.
Page 12. Exactly.
So we have a conclusion of the matter where you have an economy in a difficult time, exceeding expectation and target. We're scheduled to do 3% GDP, was revised 4% now, about 1% and a half, almost 2% above the targeted 4%, 5.7%. And so that is clearly way, way better than the NDC, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, handed over to Akufo-Addo, His Excellency, on January 2017. And as a result of that, our debt to GDP ratio dropped significantly. Whilst His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the President, who is sending his finance minister today to read the budget, left an economy with a debt to GDP ratio of 73.3. Okay?
Sorry?
That's not accurate.
You mean the figure?
No problem. No problem. But they left a debt to GDP ratio of 73.3, is inheriting a debt to GDP ratio almost 62%.
Okay.
62%. That tells you how sustainable our debt sustainability program is going, is going to be. If you look at, if you move ahead, we're looking at attaining a 55% debt to GDP by 2028. This tells you that we're on track to get to that number. And so the economy His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has inherited is not the economy he characterized to organized labor. It's not an economy he came to the State of the Nation to describe. It's an economy that is better than what he has ever managed in this country. So we are judging him by the standard he has attained in his first term as president, 2013 to 2016. He's managed, or 2017, he's managed the economy abysmally, and it is his economy that we can say has been criminally managed. If you look at what the outturns are at the end of 2024, so all this talk about the economy is difficult, let's paint a clear picture. The picture has been painted by an independent institution who is not interested in who gets high or who gets low, historically having to publish this data before the budget. So I expect the finance minister to report this data. The history must capture this data, and the measurement of which, put side by side, is much, much better than those who say they are economic messiahs. Their record, as we have seen it, their record as is reported by they themselves, is nothing compared to Akufo-Addo's. That is not to say that we couldn't have done better, but we have done much, much better than His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has ever done. And this episode in his career to run for another 4 years. We know, judging by his 4 years, that he's not going to be able to do any better than he has done before. Now, the choices that face them in today's budget, Moro, is one that I think, if I were them, as I was saying earlier, would be for them to manage expectation. If you look at their bracing advocacy for the removal of these 3 taxes, and we haven't heard so much any creative means to make up for the revenue or the funding gap that will be created by these 3 tax handles that they are so bold about going to remove, it worries me. It worries me because we're going to have challenges in terms of, one, attaining the funding the government activities for 2025, and also whether or not they would have the money to drive the growth that is needed to create the jobs that they promised they were going to create. The rail sector may suffer because of this. Because, in the budget, you're looking for 3 essential things. One of them is the revenue sources. So we're going to be looking for where are the sources for the revenue that government will be collecting to be able to manage the second component, which is expenditure allocations to MDAs across board, and then also debt management. Now, so debt management, we've done a great job for them. They have ample fiscal space, debt to GDP about 62%. So great stuff there. They just have to build on the program to be able to achieve 55 debt to GDP ratio by 2028. So that is done for them. But then the key issue is revenue. You can set any expenditure target you want or estimate how much you want to spend. If the revenue sources don't generate or does not show that you'll be able to generate that, it actually is a disincentive and undermine confidence in the private sector, because people can see, okay, that what projection you are making, assuming he comes today to make a projection of maybe say about 250 billion in revenue, right? You can make a reasonable deduction whether or not he's able to attain that by looking at the tax handles. Okay, and if you cannot, from the tax handles, tell that yes, it's feasible to attain that, then you are by that point wondering what a deficit will be, because they have to borrow to cover the gap. And so clearly, in my view, they face that challenge when they're saying they're going to remove that. I think the estimate is now about 7 billion or so funding gap that will be created by the removal of those 3 tax handles. So what's
6.8.
6.8, about 7 billion.
Almost 7 billion, yeah.
So the idea for me is, how is the NDC going to make up for that hole?
That fiscal loss.
Yes, that funding gap that's going to be generated, how are they going to make up for it? I see a probability of maybe rationalizing, the VAT that will be taxed. Either the incident falls on everyday Ghanaian or on business. You realize that whatever goes around comes around. So if it's business, it will come around and hit the citizens. So there's no way there will be any form of tax rationalization or tax rearrangement or readjustment that will not affect the people. It's like rain, right? If it's raining here and you're out, there's no way you can escape a drop. So really, it's going to come around and affect the people, which they claim that, oh, we're going to improve cost of living, right? If you're improving cost of living, that means you are promoting a certain policy view that is ameliorating or taking away the burden of prices on your citizenry. So if you are by any tactics or strategy in terms of tax policy resulting in any increase in any way, shape or form, you are not improving cost of living. So I see that difficulty. The other thing also that I see is a contradiction in the NDC's own nomenclature for these ministries that they have created. You have created a ministry for energy and green transition. Now you have created that, and you have targeted to remove a tax component which is almost akin to a sin tax, the emission tax. That's a positive tax, which is designed for transition from whatever energy to green energy. And then you have created a ministry, name it green transition, but you don't like green tax. I don't get it. All right? And that's why I was saying that
So you're suggesting that you see policy inconsistency?
Inconsistency. Because if you want green transition, what are you going to be doing at the Ministry of Energy, all right, to attain that objective? It presupposes that there will be some policy drive. One of them is to discourage and encourage green transition. And so the emission tax, which is designed to move us away from fossil fuel to green energy, is one that you should canvass for. Otherwise, you are just doing politics or keeping up appearance by saying green transition. And I want to know what the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition has to say about that. Maybe cabinet to say that, look, leave this tax. I know you've indicated that you want to remove it during the campaign, but yet you have created a Ministry of Green Transition. This is something that Ministry of Energy and Green Transition should propose to Finance Minister, that saying that consistent with our policies to transition, these are some of the things that we can do to change behavior in line with the direction we want to go. And so therefore, this tax must stay, and there'll be a justifiable basis for that. But then they are prioritizing politics over policy. So they're going to cancel it, and we're going to see how the green transition will advance. Otherwise, it will just be a name tagged along, but no effect. The budget today, I want to see what government priorities are in the real sector. Because Boro, that's where the action is. That's where growth is. That's where the masses of the people that the NDC say they are going to help, that's where they operate. What is going to be the allocations there? What's going to be the focus, the drive? In agriculture, in industry, in the services sector, what is the priority of government, and what will the allocations be? They've talked about infrastructure. What will be the capital allocation for capital expenditure on that front? And so I see them being in a very difficult situation, and they are not helping themselves. They are doubling down. What I have heard is some operations they are doing with some of their sympathetic commentators about the betting tax. Then the campaign there is to try and keep that, because maybe it is also a sin tax discouraging a certain behavior. But I think that is also inconsistent if that's the argument, because really you have established a betting commission or game commission or whatnot, and you are licensing these game outlets to do business.
I've heard Thomas Zampem, who's the Deputy Minister.
Yeah.
The MP for Sojaman say that they will keep fidelity to the promises they made to Ghanaians.
Yeah.
So they're going to scrap it.
No problem.
For them, it's not negotiable.
If I were them, I would listen. I mean, on the emission tax and even on this one, because what you're trying to do is inhibit these businesses, right? I see the rationale there, but what is the business case you are making? Because if you want to attract more foreign investors into your country, it's a barrier to entry, which barrier to entry will affect, foreign direct investment and the drive to grow the economy. And so they will take it. That's why I'm saying that they are prioritizing politics over policy. There's one thing to campaign and another thing to deliver. And so I'm not saying they should change that, but I'm saying that the difficulties that will arise, how is that going to be addressed, the funding gap? And that's, for me, the key thing I want to see in that budget today, that the real sector will be prioritized, and that prioritization requires funding allocation. Where are they going to find the money to do it? My other concern is the deficit okay? Because now we are achieving some financial debt sustainability, and we have a target of 55 by 2028. Is that going to be impaired by a gap in the budget that somehow government has to find the money to fund it, and therefore jeopardizes that path, okay? And that is there. And then the ultimate one also, which the finance minister talked about considerably during his vetting, is one to do with expenditure cut. You know, when government cuts expenditure, it is not just fine English, it's actually real. It is people, it affects lives. It's like you sitting at Metro and say we're going to cut expenditure, right? It will mean that when we come here, we won't get water and tea, right? It makes sense for the books, but it affects the people you are bringing. You understand? You cut it by, okay, well, let's shrink the time we're allowing for the discussion. Let's sell part of it for commercial. Okay, it's good, but then the content is affected. So when the minister says they are going to cut expenditure, almost all of his answers, about 50% of the answers he gave when it came to the vetting was that, oh, cut expenditure, cut expenditure, cut expenditure. When they ask him, yeah, response is cut expenditure. It's good English when you're in opposition. But now when you are dealing with the reality of governance, when you are cutting expenditure, you are cutting perhaps teacher trainee and nursing trainee allowance, okay? When you are cutting expenditure, then you are recanting on your own promise to say that first-year students in universities or tertiary education would have first-year fees paid because you have to have the money. If you don't have it, you cut that expenditure. It also means that you end up cutting free SHS, okay, component aspects of it, because you have to cut expenditure. If you say you cut goods and services, yes, goods and services, I just gave you that explanation. Goods and services, consumables in MDAs, right? If you are cutting those, it affects, people. And so it's not just a simplistic argument to say, well, cut expenditure as if you are bringing anything novel. You're actually affecting. And ultimately, cutting expenditure actually affects the economy because government spending stimulates the economy. There's only, sometimes the challenge with that is how targeted is that? So government can use its spending to target consumption in local industries to drive growth there and say, well, as a matter of policy, any rice consumption, any water consumption, any so-and-so consumption must be local. And that is a policy direction that must be pursued. So if you are cutting expenditure of government expenditure, you are actually undermining, you are affecting the economy in the long run. And so the NDC, they have talked themselves into a certain bind. I want to be proved wrong that they have some very ingenious ways to deal with the conundrum they are faced with that we don't know about. That's, I wish them well. That I wish that they are successful at, and then because whatever the outcome is of their management affects all of us. And today, I'm keen in hearing the first word the minister will speak and the last word he would say, whether those will engender confidence or undermine the confidence and whittle away the goodwill that the John Dramani Mahama administration has enjoyed so far.
Before Hamza, you come in, let me just give you this. I told you that he had done some youth engagement session with Kali J's people on X-Space, and I said I was going to read something to you before you come in, just so you can include that in your discussion. Now, what he says in your submission, what he said is that what we can do is to put together a framework where there will be stable exchange rate, stable inflation, and a stable economy. Dr. Fossey also reiterated the government's plan to reduce domestic borrowing, ensuring that more financial resources are available to the private sector to drive economic growth and economic expansion. And he says it is very critical for the government to cut expenditure and reduce its appetite for borrowing. In doing so, there will be a lot more resources for the private sector to benefit from. And it says, following his recent engagement with the traders, okay, so that's about the central business district matter, but just to sort of buttress the point you made earlier in terms of giving so much additional information from the Kali J, youth engagement session.
It is always difficult to resist the attempt the invitation by the MPP to engage in politics of mediocrity. I say so because, you see, we are at a stage of our national development where we need to look forward and design policies that would inure to the benefit of the Ghanaian people. But we have been tempted, largely maybe because of quest for political relevance by our opponents, to engage in this needless debates of who did what in terms of the management of our economy. And that is why President Mahama said that he was resisting the temptation to lament over the problems, but the focus is how to fix it. But you see, if you do not also engage in record state setting, the NPP seem to be experts in churning out questionable figures, and not just questionable figures, figures designed to deceive the good people of this country. And not just only the good people of this country, to a very large extent, even our multilateral institutions. You know, in the not too distant future, they had running battles with the IMF, largely because of the nature of their calculations, even when it comes to our debt to GDP ratio. So they are known, it is their stock in trade. And so I am pained to have to go back to history to attempt to give you an impression of the kind of economy President John Dramani Mahama handed over to them in 2017 and what we have been handed over to. Molo, you know, as a matter of fact, that at the time President Mahama left office, our debt to GDP, our debt stood at 122 billion Ghana cedis. Rebase figures, that was about 54-55% of GDP. They take delight in churning out 73%, largely because of the political motive that guarantees them. But you know, as a matter of fact, that the debt to GDP ratio, as of 2016, was 54-55.3%. These are the figures that we work with. And these are the figures that was presented to the IMF. So this fixation with 73 is largely political. Again, even with the 122 billion Ghana President Mahama left behind, Ghanaians found that unacceptable. At the time President Mahama was leaving office, our inflation was about 15.4%. Unemployment rate in this country was 8.7% more. On top of that, His Excellency President Mahama managed in the face of economic crisis. Remember, between 2013 and 2014, there was a slump in commodity prices. What it simply meant was that we were not getting the needed revenue from our gold and cocoa proceeds. So it affected economic growth in this country. But even in the midst of such challenges, President Mahama was able to leave them $270 million in the Ghana Infrastructure Fund. On top of that, President Mahama left $250 million in the Ghana Sinking Fund, intended to retire our debt, specifically the Kufuor Eurobond. You see, these are some of the interventions we prepared for them. We proceeded to also design ESLA. And from 2017 to now, ESLA has accrued in excess of 45 billion Ghana cedis. But you know the mounting debts we have as far as the energy sector is concerned today. Moro, in the midst of all this, Ghana was not in a position where it was unable to pay its external and local debts. The economy President Mahama and the NDC left in 2016 was not one that had to default and be banned from the international capital markets. The economy President Mahama and the NDC left was not one that had to subject about 1.3 million Ghanaians to haircuts on their investments, including pensioners. That was the nature of economy President Mahama left. An economy that was recovering, an economy that showed signs of progress, an economy that the IMF projected a growth rate for in 2017 to be about 8% or more. But even that economy that was left, the good people of this country found that unacceptable. And that was why they voted His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama out of office. Today, what is the situation? We are coming into government at a time that our debt hovers around 721 billion Ghana cedis. We are in a state, we are taking over an economy that requires this country to produce 280 billion to be able to service our debts within the next 4 years. 280 billion, far in excess of the 122 billion President Mahama left behind. Today, in 4 years, we are expected to produce 280 billion Ghana cedis to service our debts within the next 4 years. That is the legacy the NPP left us. Under the same NPP, today we do not have access to our international capital markets. What it simply means is that we are restricted even when it comes to borrowing. We cannot even borrow to support government expenditure as far as the international capital markets are concerned. This is the economy they left us. We are dealing with an economy that the energy sector alone is reeling under debt of about in excess of 80 billion with latest figures. Ghana cedis. Cocoa Board, about 32 billion in debt. Cocoa Board has virtually been run down. Our state institutions are in a state of comatose. This is the legacy of my brother and his government. So it is not a legacy to be proud of. You drove our debt to GDP ratio in excess of 100% because of your poor economic record. So if President Mahama left this much and the good people of this country found that unacceptable under his watch, how do you expect the gentleman to consider a debt of 721 billion? How do you expect President Mahama to react to your failure to make provision for how to even retire some of these debts? These are the questions we should be asking. So you cannot help the temptation to conclude that this economy was recklessly handled. And so when we are talking about the economy of this country, the NPP should be the last. What they should be doing now is apologizing to the good people of this country for taking their mandate for granted over the last 8 years. These are the facts of the economy. And today, we are talking about recovery. We have indicated, look, we looked at our financial space and we came to the conclusion that emission tax was needless because we argued in opposition that it was double taxation. Because, Moro, you know that as part of the excise duties, there's already a portion of that deals with emissions, largely influenced by the age of vehicles that are imported into this country. And again, you proceeded to introduce emission tax. If you look at the emission levy globally, there seem to be discussions still ongoing about the possible economic impacts of such policies on the vulnerable in society. So we are of the view that there's the need for us to take away that tax. Mind you, that is why we said rationalization of taxation. We are not introducing taxes. We have looked at the tax brackets. And we are of the view that, look, some of them are needless. If you are able to take them out and control government expenditure, there wouldn't be the need for the economy to suffer. And that is what we intend to do. We are committed to taking the e-levy, a tax on electronic transactions, largely because when we do so, it affords the sector an opportunity of growth, and government tax revenue within that sector is likely to grow. These are some of the trade-offs you need to make as a responsible government that is not only concerned about revenue generation, but to a very large extent, the impact of your revenue generation measures on the ordinary Ghanaian. That is sensitivity. And that is what President Mahama and Honorable Dr. Atuforsen are committed to, and the NDC government as a whole. Moro, I agree that government expenditure drives economic growth. But every first-year student of economics knows that it is mostly always not the case. There are times government is required to reduce expenditure so that the economy can rebound. That is the stage we find ourselves. So if this government continues on a trajectory of expenditure, we are going to have problems. We'll go back to high inflationary rates. We would crowd out the private sector in terms of access to funds to invest in their businesses. Our interest rates will begin to rise because government would be an effective competitor in that space. We are at a stage where government needs to apply the brakes on its own expenditure and allow the economy to rebound. That is why the economy has that cyclical period. At a stage where we feel that government needs to spend, then we wouldn't hesitate to spend. But before we get to that stage, this stage requires government to cut expenditure to get our macroeconomic indicators in check. And when we have it in check and we get to a stage where government needs to spend to stimulate growth again in the economy, be rest assured that government will explore that motive. But as it stands now, we must do everything within our power to cut down government expenditure and give the private sector access to funds so that they can invest
in critical sectors.
sectors.
Do you agree with those who say the finance minister should put some numbers to the savings we're making as a country with all the cost-cutting measures that
definitely
he intends to embark upon?
I can assure you that the president, the finance minister is going to do that today. You see, unlike the regime they ran, that had in excess of 100 ministers. Today, we are dealing with ministers, about 60 ministers now. They had unreasonable numbers at the presidency, about 337. Today, we are just nearing 60. We are not even up to 60 yet. That is the difference. That is responsibility on the part of government, because we all agree that the problem with this country has to do with reckless government expenditure. A government wakes up and decides to proceed with Agenda 111 without any verifiable source of funding. The same government wakes up on the other side of the bed and decides to implement free senior high school without telling the good people of this country how to ensure sustainability of funding to free senior high school. This government, like I indicated, is here to solve problems. And in the budget, you would see actionable steps intended to resolve some of these questions when it comes to funding sources for many of these programs.
Right.
And Moro, you see, the beautiful thing about this country and about this NDC government is how responsive it is to the need of the Ghanaian people. To the NPP, taking out e-levy, betting tax, and emission tax is a way of making it difficult for government to work. But you know that to a very large extent, the incidence of these taxes are on the ordinary Ghanaian. And our economy is still in crisis. And we need to be careful in terms of the economic burden on the ordinary Ghanaian. So it is an avenue, not just to take away that burden from the ordinary Ghanaian, but to a very large extent give industries the freedom and financial space to reinvest in growing their businesses. And if you do so, you open up job opportunities for the Ghanaian people. This is not the time to be taxing industries to the grave. Absolutely not. We don't need that. So if government needs to put a check on its expenditure, on its appetite for spending, so that our industries can grow, so be it. And that is why the National Democratic Congress seems to be adopting that strategy. So we know what we are doing. Unlike them, we are listening to the many Ghanaians out there who desire change in terms of our economic attitude.
All right.
And I can assure you that they will be disappointed if they are living under the illusion that we would not take away betting tax. They must have a rethink.
All right.
The NDC would not take the good people of this country for granted. And this is just the first chapter of the reset agenda. More, remember that this government has 4 years to implement whatever we have indicated in our manifesto.
Right.
And so Ghanaians are looking forward to see how the next 3 years will go.
Okay.
This budget
Okay.
will determine whether the NDC would stay true to its campaign promises or not.
Okay.
And I am convinced that this government is
I'll
more
give the
than
final
committed
take. I'll give the final take.
to its
That's fine. I'll
campaign
give the final
promises.
take to Richard because
All
we're
right.
just.
That would
Richard,
be
before
fair.
you come in, Richard, just a quick one, I beg you. Ghanaians are eagerly waiting for the NDC to fulfill their promises to the ordinary Ghanaians in this budget. If nothing at all, we expect that the e-levy and betting tax, which are a major campaign theme to the NDC, will be scrapped. If not, will be scrapped. If or not, but the statement, I don't understand. Chrissy Reynolds, please send your message again because I really don't get where you're coming from. So Alhaji Ali from Pig Farm says, Alhaji Hamza from Pig Farm says, good morning, my brother. I hope and pray that the budget that is going to be read today should be business friendly and to provide hope for the youth of this country. I want to see government putting more attention to agriculture and food security in this country. More money should be injected in the sector of education, health, and infrastructure. I also agree that the e-levy should go, but we should channel that into education. We should be able to, as a nation, pay e-levy for a dedicated funding of our free SHS program. And above all, I expect to hear something about a 24-hour economy to create jobs for the Ghanaian youth. That's Hamza from Pig Farm. Richard.
Let me just start with Hamza's note.
Okay.
Okay, on the 24-hour
Our economy.
Yeah. The budget will have to show us how that will be funded.
Absolutely.
And so you see, my brother needs to chill, right? He has a long time to do this. The question is not how confident you are, The issue is that when the budget lands, what will be in there? What we are doing is speculative analysis based on the goings on.
But he's closer to the corridors of
That's
power.
okay. That's okay. It doesn't change that.
So
the reality. That's no problem. The reality
That
is one thing.
informing my confidence.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. It's okay. I mean, I don't lack confidence at all.
Okay.
I am just worried that what they are going to do is problematic. But the point is this.
Okay.
24-hour economy. You need money to fund it. Okay?
Absolutely.
You need money to fund it. You have brought green transitions and energy. You need money to fund it. Job creation. You've told people, yeah? You said you're going to do that. You need money to fund it. Okay? Many of the things they say they are going to do, you need money to fund it. So you are one who must generate money. And the reason he ought to understand what the concerns are for some of us is the borrowing that will have to be done to close the gap. So it's a reality that is facing them. And what we are discussing today, by tomorrow morning, if we find ourselves on any platform, it will be the real, actual things that we're going to be talking about.
By which time the cat would have been let out of the bag.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But now what we're saying is that we know what they say they want to do about tax handle. And the entire budget is about revenue. Okay, expenditure is key, but you can't spend when you don't have the money. Yeah, you understand? And so it's about revenue, revenue, revenue. And here they are busy thumping their chest about removing revenue handles. I don't know that I want them to keep it. I want them to remove it. But I'm being rational in asking the question, how are you going to replace the gap? That's key question. And hopefully we'll find out when the minister comes to Parliament. Either his bag is carried on the head or he carries in his pocket. We want to hear. We're going to find out by tomorrow. We'll see what the reality is. You see, if my brother talks about government spending, where we are, the economy is growing. The economy is recovering. So what you do is strategic use of government spending. Government spending is key. The only is actually, that's your fiscal policy, revenue and expenditure. So government spending is a key policy that drives the economy. The question is where the spending is targeted. So what he's talking about is a bit misplaced, because if you are a government that is coming and you're offering to do 24-hour economy, you must spend. The question is targeting your spending on 24-hour economy to drive that sector. So government is not going to stop spending, government will spend.
Absolutely.
You must spend. We are not in our economy, we are not suffering from an expansionary situation where you need to cool the economy down by contracting and cutting spending. That's not where we are.
That's where we are.
No.
Actually, that's where we are.
Please,
Bro,
I beg you.
What is driving inflation?
I beg you, no, hold on.
That was what, that was that reckless spending that brought out this thing.
You're not understanding the issue. If you are, he's
saying unbridled borrowing, it increases your goodness.
Please, this is basic. You can do whatever you are doing. I'm saying you're going to manage the economy.
This is basic economics.
When you have an expansionary crisis, it means that your economy is overheating. You need to cool it down. Governments curtail spending, all right, to consolidate, all right. But you are inheriting an economy that is growing. And you see the contradiction in what he's saying. He says that this economy has been mismanaged, but then he says that this economy needs to be cooled down by contracting. You understand? Something that is malaise, something that is in comatose, something that is in ICU, you cut government spending to it. Imagine that you can't breathe on your own, and then they deny you oxygen. Is that rational? It's not.
Goodness God.
It's not.
I'm sure economists who are listening to you are disappointed.
You also said earlier, just a quick one. You just said earlier that
you're telling the principles
absolutely. Please, I hope you just maintain your silence.
Relax. I'm relaxed. But you just said earlier that not all growth are job-related growth.
Absolutely.
So there's growth.
Influence growth.
I think was Hamza. Okay, and that
is influence growth the economy.
Please.
There are some growth that are called jobless growth.
I didn't say that. He says
okay, not you. But I mean,
so let me just make the point. I mean, these things, there's nothing to debate over here. the reality will land.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that this economy, you need government spending.
Okay.
Which government spending, one, linked to the 24-hour economy. You are not going to be cutting expenditure and drive 24-hour economy. I don't know what he's talking about. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, please, I beg you, I beg you.
That's why I say you need to correct.
I beg you.
Cutting expenditure is not the same thing as government taking a decision.
No, Hamza, he's not being definite. He said if.
Please, just hold on.
Because we don't even know it for a fact. We haven't seen the budget.
I hope you be deference.
Yes, Hamza, please hold on. Yeah.
So you see, government spending, he talked about government spending. That's what he said.
Yes.
Okay? When you are cutting government expenditure, government is not spending. So I'm not sure where he's getting this from. But anyway, what I am saying, please.
How can the two be synonymous?
No, Hamza, listen.
Cutting government expenditure, meaning government is not spending.
Hold on.
How can you allow this to go?
But it's not in the literal sense.
How can the two be synonymous?
Let me give you 1 minute to explain what he's talking about.
There will be some spending. What he said, there will be any spending.
Boro, give him a minute. Let him explain that cutting government spending means government is spending.
No, but we also have to we also have to be careful not to create the impression that nothing will be done at all.
No, what I'm saying is that
so we need to.
No, but I mean we're not even we're not even discussing factual situations even now.
Yeah, because we don't have the
budget before us.
Yes.
But what is asked about, I don't understand. We're talking about a government that says it will create jobs.
Yes.
A government that says that he needs to reset. A government that says that he wants to do 24-hour economy. A government that says that what? He wants to bring cost of living down. How do you do that?
Okay.
You do that by just watching? Prudence. You understand? And then if you are saying you are cutting government expenditure, listen, if you are saying you are cutting government expenditure, expenditure.
They're taking us off. They're taking us off. Unfortunately, they're taking us off. We have just 30 seconds. But
so let me just land for you. The point.
Can you do this 30 seconds?
That's okay. That's okay. But the point I am making to you, Moro, is that
okay.
Whatever my brother is agitating about, he needs to calm down.
Okay.
Tomorrow we'll see the full picture. But what he's talking about as an economic conversation, he needs to cool down. Okay. What he's saying, he's rather getting the issues wrong.
No.
Government spending is critical, and this government must spend.
Okay.
But the question is, what area would that spending go?
I don't dispute that. But government cutting expenditure is not the same thing.
Please.
No, he knows that. He knows that. He knows that. Come on, he knows that.
30 seconds. I don't appreciate what he's doing.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Maybe I'll also be entitled to 30 seconds.
No, the point I am making is this: that when you have a government that's made all these promises, it must spend in the areas that it must spend, but then the government is withdrawing tax handles. It creates a concern of funding gap, and that funding gap is what we're interested in. Whether or not you are going to cut, you're not going to cut, it's not a problem. But it's saying that the revenue must be there.
That's fine.
And what you are cutting is of concern to Ghanaians.
That's fine.
That's a simple fact.
But
I'm not happy the way he's interrupting.
No. Hamza's taking it easy. But Prince Secretary Jay says hi. He says Aura will do the job. Yeah, once the country collects monies from persons who are taking those,
he's confident about that.
Yes,
that's okay. That's okay.
Anyway, so Mr. Anyagba, thank you so very much for your time. Hamza, it's always a pleasure having you. This has been Good Morning Ghana. Today's edition, the Tuesday edition. My name is Audu Moro. I've been here with Rachel Anyagba, Director of Communications for the MPP, and also Hamza Suhinu is a private legal practitioner, so a member of the NDC's communications team. Thank you so very much. Remember, the show was also live on 94.1 FM. Have a wonderful day. Please stay with us whilst we bring you a live coverage of the presentation of the 2025 budget. Bye-bye.
Excuse me, sir.
Hello.
Please, next time, can you put in a dustbin?
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'll not do that again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Look at how she's looking so fabulous.
I know, right?
Thank you. Auntie Naya.
Yes, dear.
Uncle Kofi.
Yes, dear.
All you've been teaching me about sanitation, I've been teaching my friends at school, and it has been absolutely great.
Really? Wow.
That's a great impact you're making now.
Sure. Keep it up, girl.
Okay.
Sure.
Auntie Naya,
Yes, dear.
I need to tell you something.
Go ahead.
If we want to be successful as a people, we need to be aware of the importance of sanitation.
That's true.
That's true. You're right, Dama. You're right. That's true.
Naya, do you know sanitation is so important and crucial in our society?
Yes, Kofi, and I thank God for Kids Sanitation IQ, which you can also just say KSIQ. It is an important show that you don't need to miss it.
Kids Sanitation IQ. That's a great show. I understand the show has been designed for the kids to educate the public.